Yo, what's going on, my friends? Glad to be back. First fantasy football video of the season out of your boy Laffy right here. Basketball's over, which means we're going full speed all the way from now through the NFL season, and it feels great. It's my favorite sport to talk about. I'm assuming all of you guys here as well feel the exact same way, and we can't start soon enough. We're still in June. We got a lot to talk. Actually, when this comes out, it might be July. I don't know. It depends how quickly they can edit it and produce it and get it out there, but that's besides the point. We're going to be ripping from now all the way up through the draft and through the season. Glad to have you guys with us hanging out. And of course, check out our betting channel too. I know you guys are a lot of you, there's some overlap here. So I'll tell you how to get $200 free and cover all of your league fees in just a minute. But before we do, I can't wait to dive into this. We're talking top 3 breakout players to win your leagues in 2022. One of them, a little bit unconventional, so don't hate me for it. But and it's certainly not a prototypical breakout player. Fella's been in the league for quite some time now, and I'd never draft him in Dynasty, but we'll get there. We'll get there last. We'll rip through all 3 of these and have some fun. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. All that stuff helps us greatly, so I appreciate it. And follow me at Laffy_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. All right, I won't always do intros like that or that long, but first time back, we get excited here. All right, enough of the pleasantries. Let's dive into it. First one up. We loved, if you guys hung last year, you know that we had some big hits that helped us win some leagues, and we had some bad ones, right? We had some that were not so great. Miles Sanders, we'll talk about him this year. Clyde Edwards, whatever. We'll get into all of that. But I loved Michael Pittman, and he was fine. It's pretty good. 1,000-yard receiver with Carson Wentz at the helm. We got to go back to him this year as a legitimate breakout player. I cannot stress enough how much I like this guy for 2022. So let's talk about why. First off, he's good. We know that. We loved him coming into last year's draft. He had an ADP north of 100, so we got him cheap. And really looking at it, we did quite well with his ADP where it was. There were so many unknown those. He was a ghost as a rookie, basically, for myriad reasons, specifically quarterback play, whatever. And Carson Wentz was his quarterback last year. So we won't get the same discount this year that we did in 2021. And that's cool, because Pittman can be a legitimate alpha receiver with Matt Ryan at the helm in Indy. There's no question about it. And I don't want to hear that Ryan has nothing left or he isn't an upgrade from Wentz. That's crazy talk. I mean, Ryan was working with absolutely nothing in Atlanta last year. I know he had Pitts, a rookie tight end. It took him a while to get up to speed, though. We saw that. Calvin Ridley got into all of that shit. Actually, that was the other stuff, and then the betting came later. But besides the point, Calvin Ridley wasn't on the field for most of the season. And then you're relying on, journeyman wide receiver / running back and Cordell Patterson to get the job done. Now you look at this from last year to this year. Look at the jump that they're getting from Matt Ryan. His O-line was 31st, ranked 31st in pass blocking according to PFF last year. And this team was 31st in rushing yards. He had no help anywhere. He was also sacked 40 times, which was 5th most in the league. Now look at the Colts. PFF has them projected as a top 10 line with a lot more upside than that. And arguably they have the league's best running back. They're also going to run a lot. We know that, but it's okay. Hear me out. It's okay to sacrifice some volume for efficiency. If the efficiency's there, especially when Pittman's surrounded by the oft-injured Paris Campbell, a second-round receiver in Alec Pierce, and Mo Alley Cox at tight end. And I'm not saying Wentz was terrible last year. He wasn't terrible. Right? Like, we've seen terrible Wentz. I'm not saying he was terrible, because on the surface, his numbers were fine. But there's a reason they didn't want him back in Indy. Pittman, though, Pittman's a beast. He had a 64.3% catch rate on contested targets. He averaged 1.95 yards per route run, which, given his situation, was pretty good. Very good, actually. Still top 20 among all receivers with at least 50 targets. And he was top 10 in target share. He had 25% target share. He ran routes on almost 97% of dropbacks. And despite the absence of weapons, Matt Ryan, who is the new quarterback for the Colts, still had Kyle Pitts get to 1,000 yards, albeit in 17 games. But how did he do for the receivers in previous seasons? I think you guys know the answer to this, but I'll tell you anyway. Calvin Ridley was the wide receiver 5 in 2020, and Julio Jones was excellent in the 7 games he played to completion. Julio Jones in 2019, wide receiver 3, 2018, wide receiver 2, then wide receiver 7, 6, 2, and so on. You get the point. I'm not saying Pittman is the next Julio Jones, but he might be. And he can also be super useful downfield. He was 9 of 18 on deep balls last year, caught 50% of them. That's with Carson Wentz, not a good deep ball thrower on the field. And Pittman can be used anywhere. I also think it's crazy to think that Frank Wright is not going to use a 6'4", 220-pound behemoth more in the red zone, where he was targeted 16 times last year, especially given his ability, as we've seen, as we talked about, to come down with those contested 50-50 balls. And that's why I love him. As the wide receiver 14, ADP of 30. That's on Underdog. Definitely sharper there. Understand that for best ball, it's different. You're probably going to get him at an even better ADP in your home leagues and your redraft leagues. So just keep that in mind. Right now, at this point of the year, the only reliable source of ADP data is for Underdog, where people are just routinely drafting and you're actually getting a lot of data and a lot of information. But I think there's still meat left on the bone for sure at wide receiver 14 for Pittman. He's in a phenomenal spot, even in a run-heavy offense. I know a lot of you guys are only into fantasy football. Maybe you're not into betting, but everybody's into free money. That's all there is to it. If you sign up using the link in the description, in the pinned comment for BetMGM, even if you're not a sports bettor, doesn't matter. You can cover your league fees with what they're giving you. You deposit $10 when you sign up using that link. Put that $10 on any team to win. Right now it's baseball, right? So either any team, just put them on the money line for any team to win. They don't need to win. You bet that $10 that you deposited, and when the bet settles, it turns into $200, just like that. I don't give a shit. Use it for football, right? Use it. You build your bankroll up for football and you're sitting pretty come September. Or just consider it, hey, you know what? I'm getting $200 free to do absolutely nothing outside of sign up, deposit, put $10 in. And like I said, cover your league fees. Do whatever you want with it. Doesn't matter if you like baseball. You don't even have to watch the games. Just click the link, $10, deposit when you sign up, put it on any team to win on the money line. Even if they don't win, $10 turns into $200 the moment that bet settles. And you're in business going into football season. So take advantage of it. BetMGM, links in the comments, pinned comment, or in the description. Courtland Sutton, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. God, could this dude be any happier? I mean, is there anyone that's happier than he is right now? He played with Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, Brandon Allen in the 3 years that he's been on the field, outside of the ACL year. Those are his quarterbacks. That's who he's had. Now he's catching balls from Russell Wilson, who, despite clearly being hindered by an injury last year for many games, produced 2 top 16 receivers in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. And in 2020, Metcalf and Lockett were 6th and 8th at the position, respectively. So I have no doubt that Wilson can prop up both Sutton and Jerry Jeudy this year. But what I love about Sutton is the potential for the double-digit touchdowns. And we saw Metcalf accomplish that in back-to-back seasons with Wilson. 22 touchdowns over the last 2 years. Granted, Lockett was no slouch either with 18. But I love Sutton, the big body, the upside here, and the deep ball potential. Listen to some of these numbers. Metcalf's a monster human. We know that. But Sutton's no shrimp either. He's 6'4", 215. And the obvious assumption that Wilson is 100% healthy, he should be no reason to believe otherwise, we're going to be seeing a much more efficient offense from Denver in 2022. If you just take the most basic stat for the Broncos in the 3 years that Sutton was on the field, just take the most basic stat. We'll take touchdowns, right? Can he improve upon 2 touchdowns from last year? Well, in the 3 years that he's played, the Broncos were 21st, 20th, and dead last in touchdowns per game. What about passing touchdowns? 26th, 24th, and dead last in passing touchdowns per game in the 3 seasons that we've seen Courtland Sutton on the field for the Broncos. Russell Wilson hasn't been outside of the top 10. Hasn't been outside of top 10 in deep attempts since 2015. And even that year, he led the league in touchdowns on deep balls with 15. No one else had more than 12. Actually, over those past 7 years, Wilson has led the league in deep ball touchdowns in 4 of them. And he even finished 3rd last year despite the injury, after finishing 1st the year before that. So yeah, cue up the Courtland Sutton hype train for real. And here's another stat. Sutton was 7th in deep targets last year with 29, but he only caught 9 of them because Bridgewater and Drew Lock were dog shit on deep balls, to put it bluntly, and they were uncatchable. And among 35 quarterbacks with at least 20 deep attempts, Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater were 26th and 33rd, respectively, in adjusted completion percentage. What else do we need to know? I mean, I like Jerry Jeudy a lot, don't get me wrong, but we've seen what Sutton can do with bad quarterbacking when he went for over 1,100 yards and 6 scores in 2019 before tearing his ACL the beginning of the next year. Now he gets Wilson. He's one more year removed from the injury and could truly break out. I absolutely love him. And if I'm in the 3rd round and Sutton, Marquise Brown, and Jalen Waddle, who on Underdog right now are all almost identical in ADP, if they're all on the board, I'm going with Courtland Sutton. Hey, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Maybe you forgot, but atone for your sins is okay. Rashaad Penny, just don't click out. Don't click off the page. Listen to me, please. Just for a second. Then you never have to come back again. But we had a lot of luck last year grabbing running backs when the consensus was on the other running back on that team. And I'll tell you what I mean. So before we even get started with this, yes, I know the Seahawks are going to be bad. Yes, I know their line's not going to be good. Yes, I know they drafted Kenneth Walker in the 2nd round. And yes, I know Penny has more than a checkered history when it comes to injuries. I also know there's a ton of reasons to be high on Kenneth Walker, so don't get what I'm trying to say here confused. This is what I'm saying. Walker's being drafted almost 2 rounds, and in some drafts even more than that, 2 rounds ahead of Penny right now. And it's not like, this is what I was getting to, we haven't seen this play out similarly before. We crushed spots like this last year, and that was what really helped us, getting late round talent. Okay, so call this a breakout, call it a sleeper, I don't care. Think about this. You have the unanimous top back on a team. They're drafted ahead of a guy who ends up getting more work. We only need to go back to last year for several examples. The best one, James Conner. Remember, we talked about it. Why is Chase Edmonds going in the 6th and 7th round and Conner's going in the 10th or 11th? Chase Edmonds can't score touchdowns, doesn't get goal line work ever, even before last year. And James Conner actually can do that, going to a much more efficient team, and he's not injured. Well, what we saw was Chase Edmonds finish way down, even when he wasn't hurt, and the volume was down. James Conner was the running back 5. Even when they were both healthy, he was getting all the goal line work. And what about in Denver last year? Javonte Williams, who, of course, we all like him this year, but he went a full round or more ahead of Melvin Gordon. They finished with almost identical fantasy production. They both had 203 carries. I'll go further. Leonard Fournette was drafted a full round after Ronald Jones. Look where he's being drafted this year. Zach Moss, 11 spots ahead of Devin Singletary. That wasn't even a competition. Zach Moss didn't even play in the first game. He didn't even play. He was inactive. So you get the point. Sometimes, and the point is, sometimes we just don't know, and it makes sense to take shots on the guy that you're getting real deep in a draft that is no risk of you or to you whatsoever. And Penny has an ADP of 111 right now. He's the 37th running back going off the board on Underdog. He doesn't even need to be great. And yes, I get that the quote unquote sharp move is to draft Walker, but the sharp move was to draft Chase Edmonds last year and a bunch of other guys as well, right? And there's virtually no risk in drafting Penny right now. The Seahawks don't need to be elite or even good for him to produce. Matter of fact, last year, 7 of the top 20 fantasy running backs were on sub 500 teams. And in 2020, 4 of the top 10 running backs were on 500 teams or worse. And Pete Carroll already said, and look, coach speak is nonsense a lot of the time. We know that, but he already said that Penny should have the first crack at Seattle's starting running back. Now he just needs to stay healthy. Now, when we get to I'm almost done. Stick around. I'm almost done. I'll tell you why I think there is a clear path for Penny to get there and have like one breakout season and then maybe just disappear into oblivion. But all we need is one in the 10th round. So when he was on the field, and Penny was on the field, he dominated. He was the RB1 over the final 5 weeks of the season, 671 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, 92 carries, and 7.5 yards per attempt. Of course, we'll see some regression. But here are the 3 ways that 2022 could work in Penny's favor, and we get him as a steal. We get him as another James Conner in 2022. Number 1, Penny has to stay healthy, but that's why we're getting him really cheap. It's baked into that for sure. Second, with Seattle most likely not being very good, actually downright bad, Carroll could simply opt to run Penny until the wheels fall off instead of putting unnecessary mileage on the 5'9" Walker. And this would make sense considering Penny just signed a 1-year contract this offseason. Following me? All right, this is what I'm talking about. And third, lastly, Walker's really struggled in pass protection. We know that is a problem. That is a weak spot of his, which means despite the elusiveness and all of the talent that he has, it's going to be hard to keep him on the field for third downs unless he improves fast. So could Rashaad Penny start getting more work in the passing game early on if he's healthy? I think it's totally possible. So no, he's not a breakout candidate in the traditional sense. I get that. But because he's been injured so often, it's possible that he has that kind of breakout year, and I'm 100% willing to jump on him in the 10th round and roll the dice on a productive season. Even if you don't like him, mind you, you're getting him at virtually, I shouldn't say no cost, but you can make up for a missed 10th round pick. But he's also the type of guy that if he has a big year and you got him in the 10th round, you have an every week starter, where most 10th rounders aren't getting close to that. Anyway, I appreciate you guys hanging out. It's good to be back. We'll be doing this a whole lot more leading up to the season. Thumbs up, subscribe, hit me up at Lafayette_D, and we'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.